Hello, hello, and welcome to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Araya. If you are a second generationer, child of immigrants, a diaspora leader, professional change maker, however you identify, this space is for you. This podcast is more than just storytelling. It's about strategy, identity, leadership, communities, finding yourself in this beautiful diasporic journey we're all going through. We'll talk about everything from navigating the workforce as a diaspora professional to the role that you can play in making an impact from where you are, locally or around the world. We'll talk about the realities and joys of being a second generationer, some of the challenges, some of the delights, but most importantly, we're going to remind you that you are powerful, that you belong, and that your job here is to create the spaces you wish existed. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to That Second Gen Life. I'm your host, Samhar Araya, and I am so glad you're here. So in the last episode, we kicked off a very special overview of diaspora impact and all the ways that diasporas use their time, talents, and treasure for good. And that's essentially social, economic, and civic impact. And these are the pillars that really capture how we as diasporas live in our communities, in our adopted homelands, and what we hold on to and celebrate, preserve, and amplify from our ancestral homelands. So today I wanted to do the first of 3 episodes, which will look at social, economic, and civic impact separately. And I want to do a deep dive because I think you're going to find yourself in one or maybe all of the pillars, but it's only right to really unpack what we mean when we say social impact. I know everybody's got their own definitions of it, their own idea, but I really want to walk you through all the ways that you are doing the celebrations and the honoring and the preservation across the board and making real impact from where you are, which is really what I always believe we should remember is what we can do from where we are. So today we're going to talk about social impact. And this is the pillar I think that most of us know by heart. Like it's automatic. When we think of social impact, it's culture, it's music, it's food, it's the language, it's the celebration, the traditions, the stories, but it's a little bit more than that, okay? I want you to think of it as the way we care for our communities, the way we provide services, and the way we preserve identity and honor our heritage. So some of you listening may not feel like you're a part of a diaspora, but you may realize that you've been doing something that maybe you learned from your grandfather who was an immigrant, or something that you learned when you traveled to your ancestral homeland, you brought it back. This is really how social impact exists. It's in this cultural preservation, amplification, and providing services to the community. And that's important, okay? So whether you're hosting a cultural event or you're running a youth program or you're just sharing stories from your family, this is what social impact looks like. And I've got 3 really amazing examples to share with you today of diaspora organizations and communities that are excelling at social impact. I'm a big fan. I love them. I think the world of them, both from a distance and in some cases where I've gotten to know them quite well internally. So let's talk about what social impact is. This is essentially what people see first when it comes to diasporas. It's the restaurants that they go to for your cultural food. It's the fashion and the traditional clothes. It's the jewelry, the music, the entertainment, the customs. It might be a festival. It might be the language, all the things that sort of encompass how the world meets your people, meets your community. All right. And that is truthfully a big chunk of diaspora space. Whether you're African, Arab, Asian, wherever you're from, like just anywhere in the world, European, I can name the whole world. But just think of like your culture and what is the first touch point that your community or your people tend to offer to the world? It ends up being about your culture. And that is often in the shape of a restaurant, of a community gathering, of a tradition. I lived in Brooklyn for many years, and I'm telling you, the Labor Day weekend was always a vibe because it was a celebration of Caribbean cultures and communities from Haiti to Jamaica to Guyana, Trinidad, all of them. The whole Caribbean would come out in full force because it was not only Labor Day, it was a reminder of the history and culture of Caribbean communities. And so sometimes when we think of social impact, we tend to stop there. We think of how celebrating culture is what it means to be in the diaspora. And I would say that, honestly, I want to say something a little bit controversial. I think we really sell ourselves short as diasporas when we lean into our culture and we don't think of what else we can do beyond culture. So the culture is rich and it needs to be preserved. and it needs to be celebrated and showcased. So I'm not arguing with that. But I think that that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to social impact. And that's why I want to show you these orgs today as examples. I think there's also much more we can do on the economic front and the civic front, as you'll hear in like my later episodes. But I want you to understand that when it comes to being a member of a diaspora, the culture is automatic, right? And it's for you a personal journey. And for people who are guests or new to our communities, it's an eye-opening experience. It's a window to our world. But you got to be honest now, like what else can you do in addition to those mainstream forms of social impact and cultural celebration? Where can you innovate? Where can you expand people's horizons even more? And look, don't get me wrong. Again, like if it's food, then a restaurant is obvious. But let me tell you, I just went to the most amazing pop-up over the weekend here in DC. And it was by a very good friend, a sister, really, a chef who is an Eritrean American born and raised in the States. And she has taken her skills and her love for her country and her people and her love for cooking. And she has really created like an Eritrean fusion offering. And the pop-up, which was at a restaurant here in DC called Compass Rose, the menu was just like this beautiful fusion of truly Eritrean dishes. And when I say fusion, I don't mean she went left and forgot about our culture. She got creative with our food. So there was like guanta, salata. If you speak Tirina, you know what I just said, but a salad with some dried injera in it. There was like all these different versions of our food and new takes on it. There was salmon tipsy, which I was not expecting, and I was like, really good. A social impact can be that as creative as that. So I just want to say that. But now let me get into some examples of some really incredible organizations that are not only serving or celebrating our community. So let me get into some examples of organizations and communities that are driving social impact from where they are and making a difference in the lives of their own community and people across the country and around the world. My first example is an organization I really hold near and dear to my heart. It's called African Communities Together, or ACT. And ACT is based in New York and DC, and they focus on providing legal services, advocacy support, and organizing training for African immigrant communities. So it'll be anything from like free immigration legal services for those in need to building campaigns for policy change focused on everything from housing and immigration rights to protecting immigrant groups from losing their temporary protected status. And they really, I think, are one of the first. There are a few others, but there are a handful of organizations that are amplifying the needs of African immigrants. When we talk about immigration, we talk about immigrants, we tend to think of particular demographics in the United States. And what I love about ACT is it's providing services to the African immigrant communities in the United States, and it's doing advocacy and national campaigns to feature and amplify the needs of such an underserved population. ACT is not just an immigrant rights organization. They're an example of how they're using the founder, Amaha Kasa, how he's using his time, talent, and treasure to build a nonprofit, provide a service to local communities, and showcase the importance of African communities in the United States. I think they always do much more work than they'll ever share because this is the kind of work that goes unnoticed. And I think that's a really great example of social impact that we can't forget. Another really great example of social impact are diaspora organizations that form nonprofits, but nonprofits for affinity purposes or professional purposes, nonprofits for networking purposes. I did this when I had the Diaspora African Women's Network, but the one that comes to mind lately is an organization that I had the chance to work with when I was at UNICEF USA, and it was called the National Arab American Medical Association, NAMA. And NAMA is such a beautiful example of Arab American medical professionals, mostly doctors, but medical professionals of all backgrounds, coming together to provide support to communities in need, provide support to communities abroad, countries where they may have come from, and really focus on how to provide education, outreach, and care to those most in need. They have done what I think many diaspora organizations do, especially diaspora medical professional organizations. They do the medical missions abroad. They provide scholarships for the next generation to be able to go to med school. And they do a lot of education to their own communities across the Arab American diaspora here in the United States on what's top of mind from a health front. So we can't forget that health And health advocacy, health services is also a form of social impact. And this is a big space that I see a lot of diaspora organizations. Most of us, we have a doctor's professional association, a physician's professional association, a medical diaspora association, the same for law, the same for education, the same for any kinds of other professions. So social impact is also about our own professional development, our own professional capacity, and the delivery of services from highly skilled professional spaces to the general public or to the diasporas in need. Now, another great example of social impact, and I'm going to end here, is, an organization that is built to provide information and news and education and awareness. And we can't forget that social impact is also about information exchange and sharing and telling our stories and narratives. And this, I always think of this really great organization. It's not actually an organization, excuse me. I think it's a company. I haven't looked if it's a nonprofit or a company, but you should look up this organization called The Juggernaut. And The Juggernaut is a media company, I guess I should say, that through its digital platform tells all kinds of different nuanced stories of the South Asian diaspora experience. And I read it, I'm a follower, I'm a fan, because it's such a great example of how you can amplify South Asian experiences in the diaspora across the many countries that consist of it. It's not just India, it's also maybe Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan. It might even go further than that. But what I love is that they've taken this sort of regional approach to a diaspora lens. And for them, social impact is about discussing their own social and cultural values as they are being experienced in the diaspora. It's a little bit of protecting and preserving their identities and their narratives and their histories, but also asking and pushing for conversations that need to be happening in the diaspora. So I think often about The Juggernaut because I feel like that's a really great model from a media outlet or a storytelling and narratives outlet that is doing very well. I know on the African front, my diaspora community, we have many diaspora media outlets that are also worthy of recognition and that are making great impact. But something about The Juggernaut's strategy is, I think, more fitting for the time that we're in, from the 21st century social media space, the digital platforming, just on the cusp of multiple conversations at once. But yeah, so these are some organizations that are top of mind: ACT, NAMA, and Juggernaut, on what I think about when we say social impact. But they are examples of a larger truth, that social impact is really about culture and community. It's about preserving and serving our community and amplifying our needs and our stories. And whether you're thinking about starting your own organization, wanting to give back to your community, or wanting to celebrate and showcase a certain culture, I think there's so many ways to do that. But just understand that is one of the most influential pillars in the diaspora space about where we exist and how we make impact. So I want to hear from you. Like, how does your community exist in the social impact space? What does your community do quite well in expressing its culture or serving its community? We have a lot of great examples in the African diaspora. We have a lot of great examples, from food to music and now fashion. What I love is fashion is coming out with new diaspora designers. Shout out to Awet, a great example of a diaspora fashion designer. He has a great company that he started a few years ago, but he just launched a brand new line with clothing and apparel that is actually made in Eritrea. And this is phenomenal because, as an example of social impact, he's a business, he's a company, he's pushing forward on fashion, on design, but he also found a way to build a bridge between bringing our stories and also creating jobs and opportunities and making sure that Eritreans themselves are at the forefront of these fashion designer experiences. So love that. But I would just love to hear what you guys think and what comes to mind when you hear social impact and what examples you have. So in the next episode, we will be talking about economic impact. And believe me, it's not just about remittances. I promise you, remittances are literally just a small part of this. There's a lot more to economic impact that I think you're doing that you don't even realize. And I don't mean spending money to purchase things. I'm talking about wealth. I'm talking about investments. I'm talking about transforming economies. Okay, so stay tuned. And until then, let me know what you guys think. Share your stories. Drop me questions. I love sharing these thoughts with you, and I really want to thank you for your time and listening to me. I look forward to our next episode, and I can't wait to see you again. Thank you guys so much. See ya. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow That Second Gen Life with Samhar on your favorite listening platform.